What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Undefeated Post-Weigh-In Show. This is UFC Sao Paulo, and we're taking one final look at these fighters. Before we lock all of our betting action in for tomorrow, make sure you hit the like button for me. Let's get straight on into it. First fight of the night. I gotta warn you guys, by the way, this is not the most in-depth post-weigh-in show you're ever gonna see. The camera setup that they had going over there in Sao Paulo, it was awful. Bad camera quality. It kept coming unplugged. I didn't get to see everybody because it would be blank while the fighter was weighing in the whole time. Thank goodness we had ceremonials, so we at least get to see what these fighters look like, in clear quality afterwards. We've lost a couple of fights. Very disappointing. Two of them, in fact. There were a bunch of weight misses today, and even though Vince Pichel and Bonfim both missed weight, Vince actually went back, took the extra time, put in the extra effort, made weight, and because he did that and Bonfim decided not to, Vince pulled the fight. He refused to take the fight with the weight disadvantage, citing essentially that he was punishing his opponent for being lazy, unprofessional, and not doing what he needed to do for the fight to take place. Vince has never missed weight. He takes it very, very personally when his opponents miss weight also, so we lost that one. Personally, my parlays are all effed up now because that fight isn't taking place. I wanted to watch that fight, but I kind of get it. Respect, Vince. All right, first fight of the night. We got Mark Diazi taking on Fernandez, and honestly, Diazi looked a bit rough on the scales. Now, this is one of those guys, big muscle, lots of cut, so we know he's going to have a tough time. He always does. I'm sure he's okay. He's rocking a blue mohawk this time, though. I dig it. I dig the blue. Fernandez, relaxed, looked clean, no problems from him. This was a pretty intense face-off. Mark Diazi looks like he's chomping at the bit to get in there for this fight, and that's something that I actually do kind of buy into a little bit, because I talked about how Diazi's a little bit of a head case. When he doesn't have confidence, he tends to lack the effort in fights. He tends to coast in his fights. They're closer than you'd like them to be, but if you've got an amped up, fired up, passionate Mark Diazi, that speaks to me as effort in the fight. I think we'll see that reflected tomorrow. Either way, it's a good fight. Mark Diazi getting kind of a break in competition. Fernandez is very dangerous, good submission striker, but not a big height gap. I thought Fernandez was going to be larger. I thought he'd have a height and reach advantage over Diazi. He doesn't. These guys size up really, really well. Big late line move in this fight. Mark Diazi was like a minus 125, minus 130 just a couple days ago. He's all the way up to about minus 200 now. So massive, massive move in the favor of Mark Diazi in this fight. I was extremely tempted to kind of take a little shot on Diazi when the line was closer. I didn't. I missed my opportunity, and I got word from our guy, Andrew over with Superbook Sports, the big guy has come in on Fernandez. So that's the one fight on this card where there's big guy action from Superbook Sports. He did take the dog in Fernandez, and I don't know what the hell to do. I'll be honest with you guys. I feel like I missed my shot. We could have bought low when Diazi was playable early on. I took a little sprinkle in like my DGen parlays, having Fernandez down at the very bottom because I was worried Diazi was low on confidence coming in. The face-offs absolutely changed everything for me on that one. When it comes to skill set, I think this is a pretty even matchup. The jiu-jitsu guy taking bottom, Diazi on top. Diazi probably wins a decision, but if Diazi isn't dialed in, then Fernandez probably just kind of mentally bullies him and then also bullies him in the cage. That may not be what's happening. Total pass for me. I'm staying clear away from this fight, folks. We'll see what happens. I'm very excited to watch it. I am not looking forward to betting on it. In fact, I'm passing. Next up, you've got Montserrat Ruiz taking on Eduardo Mora. We know Montserrat is a tough little firecracker. That's kind of her whole thing. Mora is massive for the weight class. She missed weight, and they moved this thing to a catchweight, which I'm curious if she's eligible for a bonus if they made this thing a catchweight, or if she's been penalized due to missing weight. Unfortunately, I had some car troubles today, so I've been running around a little bit. Wasn't keen on the details as far as that whole situation goes. But the fight is on. Thankfully, we didn't lose one here. Eduardo Mora looked really bad on the scales, I'll be honest with you, but she's massive for this weight class. When they face off, the size difference is drastic. I mean, we're talking like two different weight classes, like one in between. Like we're at 115 and 135, not just one weight class apart. This is a huge, huge difference in size between these women. And I think Mora, being the relentless, aggressive finisher that she is, I think she's going to come out here and she's just absolutely going to run through Montserrat Ruiz. We've got her on the top line of my parlays that had both the Bonfim brothers in it, so that payout is going to be like a sickening minus 200 without that third leg on the top line of my leveled parlays for this chalky card. What I am looking at, though, is Mora inside the distance. I know we're not going to get any type of a sweet price tag on that because of her being favored by as much as she is, but she finishes everybody, and that physicality for women's MMA. Ruiz, she's not UFC caliber, and she's undersized. I think it all matches up really, really well. I think Mora's going to just destroy this girl. Next up, you've got Denise Gomez takes on Angela Overkill Hill. Gomes built extremely well. Came in looking in phenomenal shape in this fight. Looked fantastic. Classic Angie. She looked good on the scales. Very relaxed. Very comfortable. She never really gets ruffled in these situations. Angie does have the slight height and reach advantage here in this spot. This was a very good face-off. Respectful but intense. Classic Angela Hill style. This is the Twitter Civil War of the week. I never thought I'd see it, but of course it's a women's MMA fight where everybody decides to have an opinion. Denise Gomez has moved out to about a minus 140, minus 145 favorite. Angie Hill is the dog, and she's all the way up to plus 120 at this point. I feel like everyone's betting Gomez hand over fist this week, and this just looks like a fight that Angela Hill can win to me. Now, Gomez, she's got that massive, massive power, but if she can't clip you with something to hurt you and put you down, she's still young enough that she's having trouble stringing together like a full 15-minute game plan to win a decision, and that's where Angela Hill really shines. She can put together a full solid 15 minutes with cardio, with pace, with high volume. I think she can edge this fight out. Now, with it being in Brazil, that is a little bit of a concern. I think the split decision prop is the way to go here on this fight. If you are making me pick a winner, I will take Angela Hill at dog odds as my play here in this spot, but I will not be surprised if she gets robbed on the cards. Or you know what? She's about to turn 39. There is that chance that the durability finally has cracked, but until I see it, I'm going to count on Angie being tough enough to take the power shots from these young dog fighters. Next up, Modestas Paucus takes on Victor Petrino. Paucus looks solid, no problem. Dude's filled out quite well. His opponent, though, Modestas is the one looking good. Victor is jacked, though. Like, imagine looking like you've got muscle and then stepping up there and facing off against a guy like Vitor Petrino. This guy is nuclear. In fact, he is anabolic. He is very, very special in his physique. He's only about a minus 245, minus 250 favorite, which I find kind of shocking. Some of the lines on this card, they're a lot wider than that. People just seem to think that he's mid-range in this spot, and I think he's going to wreck Modestas Paucus. They size up pretty well. They're roughly the same size, but you've got one guy that likes to run away and set up one shot, low volume, kind of relies on you slowing down and tiring out to win the fight. The other guy comes forward, smashes your face in, and just destroys everything he's ever touched. I think Vitor's going to find the chin of Modestas Paucus, and the guy who's been knocked out 3 times, probably going to get knocked out again. I don't mind putting him in parlays. I also don't mind taking the KO prop. Now, he's got that 1 sub on his record, but it took him the entire fight to do it in a gimme fight where he could have won at literally any point in time. This isn't that kind of fight. He's not going to be fishing for another submission, in my opinion. So I think KO is probably safe rather than inside the distance. But as always, folks, if that number isn't significantly different, take the inside the distance just to make sure you protect yourself, but this is Vitor at home all day. You got Renat Fakhretdinov taking on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos up next. Renat looked great up there, big smile on his face. You gotta love the attitude. He's got the scraggly beard, can't blame the guy. Elizeu Zaleski looked good, big smile for him as well. No issues. Renat does have a slight height advantage here in this spot. This was a very good face-off. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos is a true blue filled out 170 pounder though, so even though he's slightly smaller than his opponent, it's not like he's lacking for size, strength, or muscle. You've got Renat as a big, big favorite here. Plus 270 on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, and I've been staring at this line all week. I'm tempted to take a flyer on the dog in this spot. And a lot of that is because I've not really been convinced on Renat his entire career so far. He's got all the tools, he's got all the pieces, but he's done it against guys who are, a weight class below and guys that are shot, and I bet Kevin Lee against this guy. I feel like I almost have to go back to the well well with someone like Elizeu, who obviously is not anywhere near shot and maybe just as, if not more dangerous than somebody like Kevin Lee for a full 15 minutes as opposed to just one flash in the pan. If anyone's going to catch someone like Renat, back him up, make him a little less confident in himself, it's somebody like Elizeu. Now, am I going to be shocked if Renat just drowns Easy Dose and grinds on him and wins a 15-minute decision with lots of top time? No, I'm not going to be surprised at all. But plus 270, I think that's a little too wide. I will let you know if I decide to pull that trigger between tonight and tomorrow. Still haven't finalized. I only have one straight bet on this card. I did the parlay thing, but I only have one single straight bet on this entire card. It's a weird card. It's one of those ones where the chalk is a little too much for me in most places, but I kind of agree with them still winning, so it makes it tough to do straight bets on some of these underdog shots here. Elvis Brener takes on a short notice replacement here, Kruschewsky, and both guys look good on the scale. I'm not overly familiar with the UFC newcomer, obviously, but Brener looked thick. He looked ready to go. He's the one on the camp here. This is a 165-pound catch weight due to the late notice here. Both guys got in each other's faces, and they were talking the whole damn time at face-offs. This was extremely intense, and these guys are ready to go to war. If anything, I'd be looking to back an under here in this spot, just because we have seen Brener cracked and hurt more often than I can count. He's managed to pull on through it, but I always feel like that catches up with people. Eventually, he's not going to be able to take that big shot. Eventually, he will go down to some kind of big power shot. Now, Kruschewsky, Kaynan, I didn't get much opportunity to look into him, unfortunately. That's on tonight's docket. There's not a whole lot of hockey, so tonight I'll probably be doing some tape on this fight and see whether or not I'm interested in this dog. Because again, it just feels a little wide without knowing anything about the opponent. It feels like Brener should never be this big of a favorite because he always fights so close from what we've seen. But again, got to look into it. Can't give you a good opinion in good faith. Otherwise, I'd feel bad about it if one of these guys had a bad night or a good night, and I told you the opposite without really looking into it. Got to do my research. So put a pin in it. I'll say violence, though. Good luck if you bet that fight. Next up, you got Armen Petrosyan and Rodolfo Vieira. And this is the one straight bet that I've got on the card. We've got Armen, no issues. Big-ass arms, though. This guy's been hitting the gym, that's for sure. But holy jacked. Rodolfo Vieira is unmatched. Just fantastic shape. Absolute freak physique on this guy. On all the good stuff. Decent height advantage when they face off for Petro, but Rodolfo's back. It just, every time I see him, they face off and you're like, yeah, he's a pretty thick guy. And then he turns around and you see his back and you're like, damn! So this is the spot where I am sadly betting against Rodolfo Vieira. I hate doing that because I like Rodolfo. I like his game plan. I love his submission upside. The black belt hunter, he's unmatched on the ground. But Armen is my guy, okay? He's huge for the weight class, got that nice, long, tall frame, and even though he gets taken down, again, I've compared him to this before. Jamal Hill, this guy gets up. Like, yes, he's tall, lanky, and long, and he's easy to take down, but he doesn't stay down there very long. He knows all the tricks to work to the cage and get back up to his feet, stay safe, and then he just puts a beating on people. So if he does get you out of there, it's probably late. It's chipping away. It's over the course of 15 minutes. He's not like the one-punch hitter-quitter guy. Even though I do think he's got that kind of power, he just chips away at people and makes sure that he's safe and defensively sound rather than going for that bite down on the mouthpiece and swing for the fences. And that's what you've got to do against a guy like Rodolfo. He's so tough, he's big, he's meaty and thick. It's going to be hard to knock that guy out. But at a pick'em price tag, I'm going to go with the guy I think can put together the better 15 minutes. We've seen Rodolfo Vieira, when he doesn't get that finish, kind of fall apart in these longer extended fights. He really tends to be reliant on that sub. And I think Armen is capable at this point of surviving those transactions. So yeah, I've got the bet on the straight money line, Armen Petrosyan. Line is moving the other way. You can get minus 105 now on Petrosyan. I laid minus 115 or minus 120, I believe. So, wrong number there for me, but still my guy. It's not enough to scare me off. Next up, you got Caio Borralho taking on Magomedov. This was an intense fight all the way around. I mean, Caio is intense as all hell on the scale today, shredded in fabulous shape. Magomedov, though, he looks good too. I mean, especially coming in here on short notice. There's no issue looking at him physically. Very intense face-off. But folks, this show right here, this is what you watch for the good stuff. Because I had no idea that Caio was going to have a significant height advantage in this spot. He's a much larger framed individual. I thought Abus was going to match his frame. I thought this was going to be a size up well situation. It's not. Caio's big. And I think that makes a huge difference for me mentally speaking in this fight, because we've seen that Abus just doesn't have the best gas tank in the world. When he gets to be the nail instead of being the hammer. It's a different ballpark. This guy's got nasty power. He's got great striking, and at range he does well, but he blew his wad in his last fight against Sean Strickland in about 2 minutes. Now he's taking on Caio, who's a grappler, and I thought Abus was going to have a little bit of a height and reach advantage in this spot, and if he's able to control that distance and that range with the height and reach, then I think he's a guy that could be in the driver's seat. But if he's not able to do that because Caio's actually the bigger, more physical man, then he's going to have a hard time fending off the grappling. He's going to have a hard time controlling the distance because his opponent is going to be the one who's a bit taller and longer. So in that circumstance, that leans me a lot more towards Caio than I was initially. Now, I didn't get to the point of actually saying I was going to bet on Abus. I was close. I was tempted. But when I built my parlays, I thought, you know what? At the end of the day, I still think Caio probably finds a way to win this thing in Brazil, and I'm going to go with that now, and I'm going to go with that more confidently. So I did end up siding with Caio. I did end up throwing him in the level parlays, and now I'm looking at him and thinking about maybe betting him inside the distance, like maybe round 2, round 3, that type of thing. And the one thing that we did talk about is that Abus does have suspect durability. We've seen that chin get touched. We've seen him go down, and even though Caio's more of a BJJ guy, I actually think there's some upside here for the KO. I wouldn't mind looking at like the late round sprinkles for like a round 2, round 3 KO, where if Caio starts to wear this guy out, he's just going to wreck him on the feet instead of bothering to take him down to the ground, because once he's tired, he's a sitting duck. So I got Caio in this spot, and I feel a whole lot better about it going into tomorrow's fights. Next up, you got Jailton Almeida and Rodrigo Nascimento, a couple of big old heavyweight boys. I don't need to tell you much here. Neither of them is doing anything physically that you would expect. They're both still big old flabby boys. Height advantage for Jailton Almeida, and these guys kept their distance. It's definitely a rematch. Not a whole lot of like burning intensity, decent stare down, but nothing to write home about. My opinion has not changed on this fight whatsoever. Jailton Almeida is the bigger guy. Haven't seen him make any real improvements. Nascimento, better gym, more athletic, faster hands. He seemed to be the one in the driver's seat last time. And on top of that, we know with these UFC rematches, more often than not, the person who won the first fight is going to win the rematch. I have a hard time picking against the guy that won the first fight in this spot, especially when Jailton Almeida has just not turned the corner like I thought he was going to. So maybe if he comes out here and wrestles suddenly and puts together a full 15-minute game plan, sure, Jailton Almeida is a live underdog. I don't see him doing that. I don't think he's capable of doing that. We've bet on him hoping he would do that, and he just never does. So if Jailton Almeida turns the corner this weekend and is suddenly the guy I thought he could be for all these years, I'm going to be pissed, because I am picking Rodrigo Nascimento. And again, I'd be tempted to look at the knockout prop, just because Nascimento's hands are so damn fast, and when they fought the first time, Mays reacted extremely poorly to getting hit by this guy. I think Nascimento might not need to rely on the grappling in this fight, and in fact, if Mays is the one pushing that grappling, Nascimento's got all the more advantage on the feet and incentive to keep it there. Co-main event, Gabriel Bonfim takes on Nicolas Dalby. Bonfim was dialed in, folks. Like, his brother missed weight and looked bad. He looked incredible and looks upset. His opponent, Nicolas Dalby, no problem, did the Masvidal arms behind the back. He's chill. He's relaxed up there. Not a problem. Bonfim, though, this guy's ready to go. Small height advantage for Bonfim, not a big one, but this was a great face-off. They went nose to nose. Dalby's one of those guys where I've admitted to not having the best read on him. You can never absolutely count him out of a fight. He's a very skilled fighter. He does a good job of mitigating the offense of his opponents, but I think he's going to have a tough time of that here. Bonfim is on my top line of my parlay, and at this point, like I said, it's going to be a nasty, gross two-legger with a terrible payout because the other Bonfim bro dropped off the card. But I think he can crack Dalby, and I think he can crack him early. I'm kind of expecting Bonfim to get in there and clip Dalby with the hands. Dalby tends to start a little slow. I think that's going to haunt him here in this fight. Next up, main event time. Jailton Almeida takes on Derrick the Black Beast Lewis. And I've had so many people. Clint, you said y'all must have forgot last time. We rode Derrick last time. Are we going back to the well? Are we riding our boy? I can't do it. I can't. I tried. I wanted to. But I like Instagram stalked this guy. He was out on his yacht when the call came for this fight. So we already are not sure how in Derrick Lewis is at this point. He's kind of running the retirement circuit, just making his money while he can, taking some fights here and there. And on this fight, not even on his radar, he's out on a yacht and they call him and he's like, sure, I'll take that fight. Why not? And then he gets pulled over for speeding or something. I don't know. Maybe that was somebody else. But it's one of those spots where I think Lewis is taking a payday on short notice because he can. He's going to do what Derrick Lewis does. And if it doesn't work, he has no problem getting out of there. He's going to enjoy a vacation in Brazil. So I can't get behind him here in this spot. Jailton Almeida, a guy who maybe on full camp Derrick Lewis, maybe full preparation Derrick Lewis, I would like to take a shot at, betting against. I just don't think this is the one. They are starring this guy at home in front of his crowd, giving him a chance to show out. The one thing I do think about this fight, though, is I think it'll go a little longer than people are expecting. Jailton Almeida is very tentative. When his opponents know what he's going to do, we've seen what Derrick Lewis does when wrestlers are shooting for that double leg. He's going to be well aware of that. Almeida's very smart, very intelligent. He sets up his shots, and when he takes them, he makes sure they count, and then his opponents never get up for the rest of the round. But he will also lose that time hanging on from top position, not quite doing very much. He is outweighed by Derrick Lewis in this fight, I think by 30 pounds. So it's a spot where it's going to take more effort than normal for him to keep this gigantic man down. I think we're going to get over 1.5. I'm tempted to add the over 1.5 at plus 250 to my card here because Derrick Lewis bides his time. He keeps his hands ready and he carries that power late. He is no stranger to a round 2 or round 3 KO. I think they're going to be staring at each other a lot in round 1. Almeida may pin him up against the fence, might get a late takedown, but we're going to just kind of grind this fight away until the second round. And then that's when I think Almeida will go to work. Derrick Lewis on short notice might be a little more tired than normal, might be a little more willing to quit than normal, and that's when Almeida probably sinks in the finishes in round 2. I actually think that round 2 sub at 10-1 is probably the way to go because you're getting submission at like minus 130, minus 145. We know that's Almeida's path to victory. We know that's probably the inevitable end to this fight because he doesn't strike enough and Derrick Lewis is hard to knock out, but he's been tapped before. Almeida's going to sub him. It's just a matter of when. So I think Almeida sub is a fine bet. But I think the degenerate butthole pucker shots is going to be over 1.5 at plus 250. And then Almeida sub round 2, round 3. And take those stabs on those big, fat, juicy numbers and just say, Derrick, my boy, I don't think you're going to win, but could you get me in one round at least? Could you get me to round 2? We might try to bank on Derrick to squeeze us out of round 1 and then get a round 2 or round 3 finish for a big score. That is the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show, folks. Make sure you show some love. Let me know what your favorite bet for the weekend is in the comments down below. You'll find me online at Die Hard MMA Pod, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. I will post my final card once it's set up. I've already tweeted out the PRP or the parlay, the levels parlay that I do with all these favorites on it. Those numbers, they're going to be different because we lost a couple of fights. This is a gross card. Again, the one moneyline bet that I've got, Armen Petrosyan. Everything else is going to be, props and parlays and good luck. It's not the best card, but next week we got a big-ass pay-per-view card that is epic. I can't wait for that one, so save a couple bullets. Be good. Good luck. Let's roll.